They told you Thailand's tourism was recovering, borders reopened, tourists returning, the industry bouncing back stronger than ever. Officials celebrate every uptick in arrival numbers. But here's what they're not telling you. Tourism workers, the people who actually serve tourists every single day, are leaving the industry in droves and refusing to return. Hotels can't find staff even when offering higher wages. Restaurants operate with skeleton crews because nobody wants these jobs anymore, and the workers who remain are telling anyone who'll listen, don't come back to tourism. The industry is broken beyond repair. This isn't about lazy workers or entitled millennials. This is about an entire workforce that built Thailand's tourism economy, realizing they've been exploited for decades and deciding collectively that enough is enough. And if you're planning a Thailand trip or wondering why service quality has nosedived, buckle up, because what tourism employees are revealing about working conditions will completely change how you see this country. Let's start with the mass exodus that's quietly devastating Thailand's tourism industry. Pre-pandemic, Thailand's tourism and hospitality sector employed approximately 4 to 5 million people directly when you include hotels, restaurants, tour operators, transportation, retail, and support services. That workforce was the engine that made Thailand one of the world's most visited countries. Then COVID hit, and everything stopped. Borders closed, hotels shuttered, restaurants went dark, and those 4 to 5 million workers, they didn't have savings to wait it out. They didn't receive meaningful government support. They were told to go home, go back to rural provinces, find other work, survive somehow. And that's exactly what they did. Hundreds of thousands left Bangkok, Phuket, Pattaya, Chiang Mai, returning to home provinces in Isan, the north, the south. They found work in agriculture, construction, manufacturing, or small family businesses. Some retrained for different careers. Others started small enterprises. Many left Thailand entirely for better opportunities in other countries. Fast forward to 2024, and borders are open, tourists are returning, and the industry desperately needs workers. But the workers aren't coming back. Industry estimates suggest that only 60 to 70% of the pre-pandemic tourism workforce has returned. That's a shortfall of 1.2 to 2 million workers. Hotels are operating with 60 to 70% of needed staff. Restaurants run skeleton crews doing the work of twice as many people. Tour companies can't find guides. Airlines struggle to fully staff flights. The labour shortage is so severe that it's limiting how many tourists Thailand can actually accommodate and destroying service quality for those who do come. Now, before you say labour shortages are happening everywhere post-pandemic, let me explain why Thailand's situation is different and worse. In most countries, tourism workers eventually returned when wages increased and conditions improved. In Thailand, wages have barely budged and conditions have actually worsened. Hotels that used to pay housekeepers 12,000 to 15,000 baht per month are now offering 15,000 to 18,000 baht. That sounds like a raise until you factor in that inflation over the same period increased living costs 25 to 30%. Real wages after adjusting for inflation have declined. A hotel worker making 18,000 baht in 2024 has less purchasing power than they did making 14,000 baht in 2019. Food costs more, rent costs more, transportation costs more, but wages haven't kept pace. So workers look at tourism jobs and do simple math. They can make 15,000 to 18,000 baht per month in tourism, working 12-hour days, 6 days a week, with no benefits, no job security, and no respect. Or they can make 12,000 to 14,000 baht working in a factory, construction, or retail with regular hours, legal benefits, and significantly less stress. The choice is obvious. The slightly higher nominal wage in tourism doesn't compensate for brutal working conditions and lack of security. One former hotel worker from Phuket explained her decision to me. During COVID, I went back to my village and started helping with my family's small restaurant. I make about 12,000 baht per month, not much, but I work reasonable hours, I'm near my family. I don't have to deal with rude tourists or abusive managers. My hotel wants me back and offered 17,000 baht. I said no. For 5,000 baht more, I'm not trading away my life, my dignity, and my mental health. That sentiment is everywhere among former tourism workers. Here's where it gets really revealing. Let's talk about what tourism workers actually experienced and why they're refusing to return. The working conditions in Thailand's tourism industry are abysmal, and workers are finally saying it out loud. Start with hours. A typical hotel worker, housekeeping, front desk, restaurant staff works 10 to 12 hours per day, 6 or 7 days a week. There's no real weekend. There are no consistent days off. You work when tourists are there, which is essentially always. One hotel housekeeper described her schedule. I start at 6 a.m. preparing for breakfast service. I work until 6 or 7 p.m. cleaning rooms, setting up for dinner, doing whatever needs doing. That's 12 to 13 hours, 6 days per week, sometimes 7 if we're busy. No overtime pay. No time off for family events or emergencies. If I'm sick, I still come to work because we're so understaffed that my absence means my co-workers do double duty. I did this for 8 years. During COVID, when the hotel closed, I cried with relief. The physical toll is enormous. Housekeepers are on their feet all day, lifting mattresses, scrubbing bathrooms, hauling laundry, cleaning 15 to 20 rooms per day. By their 30s, many have chronic back problems, knee issues, repetitive strain injuries. Restaurant workers stand for entire shifts, carrying heavy trays, moving constantly, breathing smoke from kitchens, going home smelling like food and grease every single day. The work destroys bodies, and there's no health insurance to address the damage. Workers pay out of pocket for medical care they can barely afford. The pay structure is designed to exploit workers. Base salary is low, intentionally. Hotels and restaurants promise that workers will make good money from tips, service charges, or commissions. But those additional earnings are unpredictable and increasingly insufficient. Service charges that used to be split among staff are now partially kept by management. Tips have decreased as tourists become more budget conscious. Commissions on tours or spa bookings are cut when sales are slow, so workers are promised 20,000 to 25,000 baht monthly if you include tips and extras, but actual take-home is 15,000 to 18,000 baht. The job security is non-existent. Most tourism workers are employed on informal contracts or no contracts at all. They can be fired instantly for any reason or no reason. When tourism is slow, they're sent home without pay. When there's an incident, a customer complaint, a mistake, they're dismissed immediately. There's no notice period, no severance, no unemployment benefits. You're simply told not to come back. One restaurant worker described being fired after 3 years because a tourist complained that their food was too spicy, even though the tourist ordered a traditionally spicy dish. No investigation, no conversation, just fired on the spot. The lack of benefits is crushing. Most tourism workers receive no health insurance, no retirement contributions, no paid vacation, no sick leave. If you're sick, you don't get paid. If you need to attend a family funeral, you don't get paid. If you want a vacation, you don't get paid. There's no safety net whatsoever. Workers live paycheck to paycheck, unable to save, constantly one emergency away from financial catastrophe. Now let's talk about the treatment workers receive, because this is what's really driving people away. Tourism workers in Thailand are treated as disposable, interchangeable units rather than human beings with dignity and rights. Managers and supervisors often yell at workers, belittle them in front of customers and colleagues, blame them for problems beyond their control. One hotel front desk worker described being screamed at by her manager because a guest complained about street noise, something the hotel couldn't control. She was publicly humiliated, threatened with firing, reduced to tears in front of other guests. That was normal, she said. That happened weekly. Customers, especially foreign tourists, often treat Thai service workers with shocking disrespect. They snap fingers to get attention. They speak condescendingly. They make unreasonable demands and become aggressive when told no. They complain about minor issues and expect workers to grovel and apologize. They leave messes in hotel rooms that no respectful person would create. They're rude, entitled, and treat workers as servants rather than professionals. And workers are told to smile, absorb the abuse, never push back, because the customer is always right. One restaurant server described a tourist who threw a plate of food at her because it took 25 minutes to arrive during a busy dinner rush. The restaurant manager apologized to the customer, gave them a free meal, and told her she should have been faster. No defense of the worker. No consequences for the abusive customer. Just acceptance that tourists can treat Thai workers however they want. Sexual harassment is rampant, particularly for female workers. Tourists, both male and female, make inappropriate comments, unwanted advances, physical contact. Female hotel workers describe being propositioned by guests, receiving sexually explicit messages, being touched without consent. When they report this to management, they're often told to handle it themselves, or that it's part of the job. One spa worker said a male guest exposed himself during a massage and propositioned her. When she reported it to her manager, she was told, "Smile and finish the service. We can't afford to lose customers." The normalization of sexual harassment as just part of tourism work is pervasive and traumatic. The lack of respect extends to how workers are scheduled and managed. Schedules change constantly with no notice. Workers are called in on days off with a few hours warning. They're told to work double shifts to cover absent colleagues. They're moved between departments without consultation. They have no control over their own time or lives because the business needs always take precedence. One hotel worker described being called at 10 p.m. and told to come in at 5 a.m. the next day to cover breakfast, even though it was supposed to be her day off. When she said she had family obligations, she was told, "Come in or don't bother coming back at all." These aren't isolated incidents. Workers describe this treatment as completely normal, the daily reality of tourism work. Here's what makes this particularly devastating. During COVID, when workers were laid off or sent home, they received almost nothing. Hotels and restaurants that had employed people for years, sometimes decades, simply told them, "We're closing. Go home. Good luck." No severance payments beyond the legal minimum, if that. No help finding other work. No appreciation for years of service. Workers who'd given their entire working lives to tourism businesses were discarded the moment they weren't profitable. And now those same businesses want workers to come back. They're advertising positions. They're offering slightly higher wages. They're pleading about labor shortages. And workers are saying, "You treated us like garbage and threw us away when you didn't need us. Why would we ever come back?" The psychological impact of this realization cannot be overstated. Workers who spent years in tourism telling themselves it was worth it, that they were building careers, that the sacrifices made sense, had their eyes opened during COVID. They saw clearly that their employers felt no loyalty, no obligation, no basic human decency toward them. They were labor units to be used when profitable and discarded when not. That realization has fundamentally changed how workers view tourism employment. One former tour guide said, "I worked 12 years as a guide. I loved showing people my country. I took pride in my work. When COVID hit, my company fired all guides with zero severance, zero help, zero gratitude for a decade of service. I found work doing deliveries. I make less money, but I'm treated like a human being. Tourism can die for all I care now." That bitterness is widespread. Now let's talk about what workers discovered when they left tourism, because this is the key. When workers went back to provinces or found other jobs, many discovered that life outside tourism was actually better. The pay might be lower nominally, but quality of life was dramatically higher. Working in family businesses or agriculture, hours were more reasonable, stress was lower, family connections were stronger. Working in factories or construction, there were legal employment contracts, benefits, predictable schedules, and unions in some cases. Working in retail or service jobs outside tourism, treatment was more respectful, customers were less abusive, conditions were more humane. Workers did the comparison and concluded that even with lower pay, non-tourism work was superior across almost every other dimension that matters: time with family, physical health, mental health, dignity, job security, work-life balance, respect. Tourism lost on all of them. One former hotel worker who now works in a convenience store explained it perfectly. "I make 13,000 baht per month now instead of the 16,000 I made in hotels, but I work 8-hour shifts with guaranteed days off. I have legal employment benefits. My manager treats me respectfully. Customers are normal people, not entitled tourists. I see my children every day. I sleep in my own home, not staff quarters. I have a life. I'd have to be insane to go back to tourism for 3,000 baht more per month." This cost-benefit analysis is why workers aren't returning. The calculation that used to justify tourism work, higher pay compensates for bad conditions, no longer holds. The pay differential isn't large enough to offset the quality of life gap. Here's where the industry's response reveals how fundamentally broken it is. Faced with severe labor shortages, tourism businesses are not improving conditions. They're not offering real raises, better benefits, humane scheduling, or respectful treatment. Instead, they're trying to import foreign workers from Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and even further afield. They're recruiting migrants who'll work for even less than Thai workers and who have even less power to demand better conditions. This is the industry's solution to labor shortage caused by poor treatment of workers. Find more desperate people to exploit rather than fixing the underlying problems. It's economically short-sighted and morally bankrupt. Foreign workers face all the same bad conditions plus language barriers, discrimination, and legal vulnerability. They're even easier to exploit because they can be threatened with deportation. This isn't solving the labor shortage. It's perpetuating the exploitation system while degrading service quality because undertrained, underpaid workers can't deliver excellent service. The impact on tourists is already visible and will worsen. Service quality across Thai tourism has declined noticeably. Hotels operate with insufficient staff, so rooms aren't cleaned properly, maintenance is deferred, guest requests take longer to fulfill. Restaurants are understaffed, so service is slow, mistakes are common, kitchens are overwhelmed during busy periods. Tours run with inexperienced guides or no guides at all. The entire infrastructure is creaking under labor shortage strain, and it's going to get worse. As more experienced workers leave and aren't replaced, institutional knowledge disappears. The new workers, often migrants with minimal training, can't provide the same quality. Tourists notice. Reviews increasingly mention poor service, long waits, staff who seem overwhelmed or indifferent. The famous Thai hospitality and service excellence that built the industry's reputation is eroding because the workers who delivered it are gone and aren't coming back. So what needs to happen? Let me be blunt. Thailand's tourism industry needs complete transformation of labor practices, or it will continue declining. First, dramatic wage increases. Not 10 or 20% raises. Double wages. Pay hotel housekeepers $30,000 to $35,000 baht monthly. Pay restaurant workers $25,000 to $30,000. Make tourism jobs among the best paid options for workers without university degrees. Second, real benefits. Health insurance, retirement contributions, paid vacation, sick leave, legal employment contracts with job security. Workers need to know they're building careers, not just surviving. Third, humane working conditions. 8-hour shifts, guaranteed days off, reasonable workloads, no tolerance for abusive managers or customers. Create systems where workers can report abuse without fear of retaliation. Fourth, respect and dignity. Train managers in respectful supervision. Empower workers to set boundaries with abusive customers. Create cultures where workers are valued professionals, not disposable servants. Fifth, invest in workers. Training, career development paths, promotion opportunities. Show workers they have futures in tourism worth building toward. Sixth, accountability. Enforce labor laws strictly. Punish businesses that exploit workers. Protect workers' rights to organize and advocate for themselves. But here's the reality. None of this is happening because it would reduce profit margins. Tourism businesses are addicted to cheap labor and see workers as costs to minimize rather than assets to invest in. They'd rather cope with labor shortages and declining service quality than pay workers fairly and treat them decently. Government is complicit, prioritizing tourism revenue over worker welfare, allowing exploitation to continue because it keeps prices low for tourists and profits high for businesses. So Thailand will continue trying to run tourism on exploited workers, accepting high turnover, declining quality, and permanent labor shortages as the price of refusing to fix the system. Workers have figured this out. They're voting with their feet. And no amount of pleading or slightly higher wages will bring them back unless fundamental conditions change. The industry that used to employ millions can't find workers because it treated those workers like garbage for decades. Now it's reaping what it sowed. Have you noticed declining service quality in Thailand? Did you ever think about the workers serving you and what their lives are like? Let me know in the comments. And if you believe tourism coverage should include the workers' perspective, not just tourist experiences, smash that like button and subscribe because these are the stories that need to be told. See you in the next one.